Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding the issue with the refined sugar, why not all sugars are a concern. I want to make this as brief as possible, and I'm going to put it in layman's terms the best that I can. Our concerns with quote unquote sugar, that means simple carbohydrates, are not the insulin response. And what people have to remember, all carbohydrates that you eat end up becoming sugars eventually, right? All your starches, everything else, they turn into glucose. That's blood sugar before they really get into the bloodstream, right? That's largely what's happening in your GI tract. We're turning all this stuff into glucose, and glucose is the primary fuel source of the human body. It's the preferred fuel source for all the cells in your body, and you have cells that cannot run on anything else. You have cells in your body that without glucose, they will die within a matter of minutes. That's it, they're dead. So anyone who's trying to make this out to be an enemy purely due to things like diabetes existing, which is a complete metabolic disease, right? We're dealing with separate metabolic diseases that make it difficult for you to properly utilize your body's preferred and primary fuel source. That is not a good situation, but that in no way makes glucose bad. That would be like saying because certain people have issues with oxygen in the air that oxygen is bad. No, you'll die without it. You have to have it. So what we're talking about when we're really discussing the negatives of sugar is fructose, and it's fructose load on the liver. So almost all the concerns we have as far as fatty liver, insulin resistance, any of these things coming from carbohydrate is almost entirely due to fructose load on the liver and excessive de novo lipogenesis in the liver, which is a conversion of a carbohydrate into fats. Okay, you following me so far? It's all about the liver at this point. So generally speaking, your body has several pathways to prevent fructose from getting to the liver. Okay, because we've eaten fructose for all of history, going way back millions of years, right? We've been eating fructose. We're well equipped to handle significant amounts of it, right? We cannot burn it as fuel. The human body, let me be clear, we cannot burn fructose as fuel. It is not a fuel source for us. The liver has to convert it into one when it gets there. But the body has other pathways to convert it into a usable form, which would be glucose, because there's a conversion it has to make. All right, number one, and this is what happens to most of the fruit that you eat, your gut flora in your lower intestine, fruit and fructose in general will ferment there. And your gut flora, the bacteria of your gut, can convert it into glucose before it even gets to your bloodstream, right? Be aware, and it can handle significant amounts of this. The problem, refined sugars get absorbed at a higher rate in the upper intestine before it spends time in the GI tract, given time to ferment. Now you add fiber, this can be largely mitigated. Okay, it slows the absorption, allows your gut flora to handle it better. Now keep in mind, you can eat very large volumes of fruit, and most of it will be handled in this manner. So, fructose being fruit sugar is another thing we look at it as, right? But when you consume sucrose, which is table sugar, right? When most people say sugar, they're thinking of specifically sucrose. And when you have studies on sucrose as the sugar used, you can't use those studies and transfer it over to other carbohydrates, okay? Because it is kind of a unique substance, right? You can't take studies on that and transfer it over. High fructose corn syrup being another one, slightly more fructose into the fructose and glucose ratio than sucrose is. Sucrose is a 1-to-1. All right, these get cleaved by your stomach acids. They're now turned into fructose glucose. The upper intestine absorbs a lot of it easier. All right, that takes it to the bloodstream. So right there, eating, say, 50 grams of fructose in different forms, the form matters. And it's because of the digestive rate and where you absorb it at. If you absorb it lower in the gut, it gets converted into glucose at a much higher rate. All right, once it reaches the bloodstream, human body has an enzyme that can convert. It cleaves different things. Now we have a limitless amount of this enzyme for glucose to take that the glycogen chains and turn them into glucose molecules. The one that converts fructose into glucose, we have a very limited supply of. So some of the fructose that reaches your bloodstream in that amount is not a set amount. It can vary based upon lifestyle, genetics, ethnicity, gender, body weight, everything. Okay, it can vary a lot. So someone says, how much can you handle? I don't know, and you probably don't know either. It would be very difficult for you to even estimate or calculate this. We know that it's a finite amount. Okay, that is what we know, and it varies from person to person. All right, that enzyme in your bloodstream can handle some of it. Then the rest reaches the liver, because now we've run out of ways to do anything about it, and we can't burn it as fuel. It's just floating around in the bloodstream, and it's not useful. It's bad in that case. Then what? Then our liver can take the rest of it and can convert it. All right, the problem is there are side effects. There are waste products as a result of this that put a load on the liver. All right, fructose is actually slightly poisonous to us in that state. That's why our body converts it and handles it for us through those other two pathways. It usually handles most of it, okay? Whatever's left, the liver has to process as a toxin that it will make usable, but it puts a strain and a load on the liver just like alcohol does, actually through a very, very similar pathway. There's a cumulative effect of this. When the amount that reaches the liver gets higher and higher, it creates a larger and larger negative effect. A very small amount, it's not a significant effect. There's actually no real health issues from it because the liver is good at its job. When we overload it chronically, that's when we run into problems. Okay? So when people talk about sugar, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about fructose load and absorption rates exceeding the ability of the gut to turn the fructose into glucose, which is a sugar we can use perfectly fine, has no toxicity to the body, no real problems. Our body handles glucose quite well if we have a healthy metabolic function, healthy pancreas. Okay? Once it gets through those pathways and exceeds the ability of the liver to handle it safely, it creates problems. So really, it's not something that's easily done until the modern era to where we have access to very large amounts of refined sugar. So when this comes up, it's not all sugars that we're concerned with, and we don't need to really be worried about fruit because it is highly unlikely that you're going to have an issue from fruit. Even if you're eating thousands of calories of fruit a day, you still are probably not going to have a problem there. So we need to be very, very clear when we're talking about this. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.